What's up, folks? This is Justin from Books, Bricks, and Boards, and I'm hitting you with the second video this week because this is actually like a follow-up video to my last one. My last video was about the One Ring 2nd Edition RPG and what my thoughts were on that. Well, this video is actually going to be specifically on the Strider solo mode for the One Ring 2nd Edition RPG. I'm going to go into how to set up your Strider mode, how it plays, what's different between it and the regular game, and then I'm going to go ahead and give you a sample of each of the 3 different types of scenes in the adventuring phase for the One Ring 2nd Edition Strider mode. So without further ado, let's get into it.
How do we know this Strider is a friend of Gandalf?
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is talk about the differences in the character creation process. And to do that, I'm going to look at my solo character, Otar the Shadowstep. Otar is a Ranger of the North, which is appropriate for Strider mode, of course. So the differences between making a character for the standard One Ring RPG and the Strider mode, first off, you're going to start with 15 previous experience points instead of 10, which gives you a little bit more flexibility and a little bit stronger character to start with. When you figure your target numbers for your 3 primary attributes, instead of subtracting your attribute from 20, you're going to subtract it from 18, which means that you're going to have a 2 better target number than you normally would. Additionally, when you are in the journey mode of the game, you are going to be inspired on all rolls. Inspired means that whenever you use a hope point to get an extra die, you actually get 2 extra success dice. Also, your fellowship score is going to start at 3, plus any bonuses you gain from your individual patron, as well as any bonuses from other choices made during the character creation process. And then lastly, this isn't really a change to the character creation process, but you need to keep it in mind during character creation because the skirmish stance allows you to make ranged attacks even if you are outnumbered or even numbered. Normally in the game, you can only make ranged attacks during the opening volley, or if you have others blocking for you up front on the front lines. So skirmish stance will make ranged weapons a viable option for the solo character. And now on to the differences in the actual gameplay. First off, during the advancement portion of the game, the end of each mission, you are going to automatically get 3 adventure points and 3 skill points. That will help you to advance a little bit quicker than the standard schedule for that. Also, your patrons, while the patrons are the same as the core rulebook, each one will have a random quest table that gives 3 different optional quests that the patron can send you on. Also, the fortune and ill fortune tables. When you roll the Eye of Sauron or Gandalf symbol on the feat die, there is a special table that you can roll on that will create a cinematic event or change to the story that will impact it in either a positive or negative way based on whether you rolled the good or bad symbol. There's also a telling table, which is the standard oracle that is used for yes/no questions. There's the lore tables, which is another oracle that will give details about specific things in the game. The Eye of Mordor is an optional rule in the One Ring RPG, but it is suggested to use this in Strider mode as it creates a little bit of extra tension and pushes you along the story. For Strider mode, this starts at 0, and then it's modified based upon the race of the character that you choose. There are also separate journey tables from the ones that are used in the One Ring RPG. These are more specific to a solo adventure, and there are additionally detail tables that you can roll upon, which will give you a little bit better idea of how some of the travel hazards might look. And I would even use these in a multiplayer game of the One Ring. Also, the Fellowship phase is a little bit different, mainly keeps the standard setup, but you can gain back hope a little bit differently than you would in a regular game. Okay, for this first example, I'm going to do combat. And what I'm going to do is set this up like I would for beginning a solo campaign, media in res, in the middle of a battle. So, to set the scene, Otar's been tracking a wolf for the last 2 days, and it's gotten a little too close to civilization for his liking. As a ranger, it is his job to keep the citizens safe. And there is an additional complication in that as he finally finds the wolf, it has actually been part of a larger pack, and it has another ranger badly wounded who has dispatched all but one of the wolves who is about to have him for dinner. So now we are going to start the combat. Now, in this example, I'm going to say that neither the wolf nor myself are surprised. I've been tracking the wolf, and the wolf has a good vantage point on me. So, in the One Ring, you get to choose to go first as a player. The player gets to go first unless they are surprised. And you're going to, and normally you would have an opening volley, which I'm going to skip that and go right into melee combat. The opening volley would allow me to shoot my bow, and then the wolf would have to engage me before he could attack. But in this case, I need to save that wounded ranger that is laying on the ground next to the wolf, so I'm going to close the distance very quickly. I'm going to choose my stance, and I'm going to choose a forward stance. This is the most aggressive melee stance that you have an option for, and it gives me an extra die to attack, an extra success die, but it also gives my enemy an extra die to hit me. I am foregoing my defensive measures and leaping right into combat with my sword and my buckler. And in this case, Otar is quite a skilled swordsman. He has 3 pips in his sword skill. You're always going to roll a feat die, and because I'm taking a forward stance, I get an additional die. On top of that, I'm going to go ahead and spend a point of hope to add an extra die. With this, I need to roll my strength target number plus any parry bonus from the wolf. In this case, the wolf does not have a parry bonus. He's got an endurance of 12, and I get to act first. So I'm going to roll my dice. But before I do that, I'm going to take a look at the wolf's stat line and go over that. So he has an attribute level of 3, which means anything that would reference strength, heart, or wits for the wolf is going to use a 3 value. He's got 12 endurance, which means basically that's how many hit points he has. He has 1 might, which means he can take 1 wound before he is killed. He has 3 hate. Hate is like hope for the enemies. Also, resolve is another stat that is exactly functionally like hope for the enemies. And he has 1 armor, which means if I score a piercing blow against him, he will roll 1d6 plus the feat die in order to see if he can avoid being wounded. If he attacks, he has Fangs 3, which means that he will roll 3 success dice, those are the 6-siders, plus 1 feat die, which is the 12-sider, and it has the special ability Pierce. It does 3 endurance damage, and it has a wound value of 14. That is the target number you have to roll with your protection to avoid being wounded if he gets a piercing blow. He also has some fell abilities. So he loses a point of hate each turn if he is engaged with an adversary wielding a torch. Unfortunately, I don't have time to start a fire right now because I need to save this ranger. But he also has snake-like speed, which says when targeted by an attack, he can spend 1 hate to make the target or the attack ill-favored. And I'm going to say he's going to do that. So he's going to go from 3 hate to 2, but I'm going to have to roll 2 feat dice along with my 5 dice for my sword, and I'm going to take the lower of the feat dice now. So I put it all into the hopper, and I got 7s on both of my feat dice, so that didn't really hurt me. I did get a 6, so I got in one of the little elvish teas, which will give me a special success. And whenever you add up all of the values, taking the lowest of the 2 feat dice, I have 13, 14, 15, 17, and 21. I only needed to hit an 11 to hit the wolf. So, I also have the additional success die, so I can use that to do a special success ability. And I think what I am going to do is use the heavy blow. So I can use heavy blow to raise the endurance loss caused by my weapon by the amount of my strength rating. My sword naturally causes 5 damage whenever it is swung, but with the heavy blow, I can add my strength value of 7 to that, so I can do 12 points of damage to the wolf, which brings it to 0 endurance, and that is enough to slay the wolf before it gets a chance to attack me. The only thing that I've lost in this little scenario is a point of hope that I used to get an extra die for my attack. Now, one thing that I didn't get to show you in this example is if I would have pierced him to get a chance to wound him. So let's say that I didn't do enough endurance to kill him, but I did still score a hit. If I scored a hit and I got a 10 on my feat die, or I got Gandalf's symbol on my feat die, then that would be considered a piercing blow. In the case of a piercing blow, whoever is struck has to roll a check for their protection to see if they have been wounded. The number that is their target number is determined by the weapon that's being used. The particular weapon that I'm using has an injury value of 18. The protection number is the armor of the enemy, which is a 1. So if I rolled a piercing blow, they would roll a feat die and 1 die for their armor, and they'd need to get an 18. Now, in this case, they rolled Gandalf symbol and a 4. Normally, a Gandalf symbol is a good thing when you're rolling it. If the enemy rolls it, that's like rolling an Eye of Sauron for them. Now, if they would have rolled an Eye of Sauron, this would have been an automatic success for them. But since they rolled it and they're an enemy, the Gandalf symbol is actually counted as a 0. So they get a 4, and they would have been wounded and killed in that occasion. All right, Otar, having dispatched the wolf, he finds that the ranger is mortally wounded. The ranger is laying there, and he is talking about the mission that he had to complete that will now go unresolved, and the cost that this will have upon the citizens of the land. My ranger is going to try to convince this one that he should allow me to complete his mission for him. But since it's not automatic that he's going to trust me because he doesn't know me, we're going to have to do a council. Now, whenever you're doing a council, you're going to have to set the resistance based on how difficult the ask is. In this case, Since he is dying, and I have displayed that I am at least somewhat trustable because I killed the wolf that was going to kill him, I'm going to set this at a standard roll. So the standard difficulty resistance is going to be 3. That means that I'm going to have to get 3 successes in order to be completely successful in my council. Now, in this case, I am going to use the feat die, and then I am going to use my awe skill. Additionally, I am going to place a hope point into increasing my dice by 1, and I am going to rely on my distinctive feature bold in my use of the awe skill so that I get 2 points for my hope instead of 1. And I am going to try to tell this guy about the history of my family and the things that they did for the realm so that he can trust me a little bit better. And this is setting up the introduction. My awe is under my strength skill, so I'm going to have a target number of 11. Okay, so I got a 7, 13, 14, 18. So I got a success, and I got a 6, which means I got an extra success result. So that means I'm going to get a base of 3 rounds because I was successful, plus 1 because I got a 6. So I'm going to have 4 rounds to get 3 successes with my other rolls. Because this is particularly important to get completed on the first try, I am going to now attempt to use my persuade ability to get him to share his mission with me. Now, I have no dice in persuade, so by default, I get no 6-sided dice to complete this, and I need a 13 to complete it, or I could get a symbol of Gandalf. However, I do have more hope points, so I'm going to spend another hope point, this is my 3rd one this scenario, to add a die. I'm also going to rely on my Shadow Lord distinctive feature to be inspired, sharing with him the dire consequences of his mission not being completed. So I need to get a 13. This is my first attempt. I get 4 tries. So I got a 7, 12, 13. I got my first success. So that's one of the 3 successes I need. I get 3 more tries to get the other 2. So with my second, I am going to try to sing a song of my ancestors and the history of their exploits in the realms to try to make him more comfortable and to ease his mind as he drifts off into death. So I'm going to start with 1 success die for the song skill. I'm going to use my 4th hope point, and I'm going to use my feat die. And I got a 7, 10, 13, and I only needed an 11 because that song skill is under my strength. So I now have 2 of the 3 that I need, and I have 2 more rounds left to do this in. I am going to now attempt to go ahead and enhearten him and just try to generally make him feel like I am going to be able to complete this for him and make him feel good about going ahead and sharing it with me. I'm going to use my hope point, which is going to be my 5th hope point of the session, to add 1 for that. And I'm going to say that he has become friendly to me. because I've been so successful so far, which gives me an extra die on my future rolls. So then I get the 1 point for the friendly stance, 1 point for the hope, and then the feat die. Okay, this was an even better roll. So I only needed one more success, but I got 5, 11, and 17. I needed a 14, plus I get the equivalent of 2 extra successes because I rolled 2 6s on those dice. So I have completed the council successfully, and because of that, I can now retrieve his mission and be able to complete that for him. He gives me a letter that needed to be brought to the Grey Wizard at Bree at the Prancing Pony Inn. So for my next step, I'm going to have to make a journey down to the Prancing Pony. Upon taking a look at the map, I figure out that it's going to take me 6 spaces to get to Bree from where I'm at. So I make my travel roll based upon this. At this point, I should tell you that I have decided that I'm going to use my fellowship points in order to refill my hope. So that brings me back up to full hope before I start rolling my travel checks. This is because I might start adding some points of shadow as I'm traveling, and I don't want to become miserable as a result. Now, having done that, I need to make a travel roll. Travel is under my heart skill, or my heart attribute, and it has 2 points, so I get 2 dice plus my feat die. Additionally, I am going to use 1 point of hope to add 2 dice because I am inspired, because that is one of the effects of playing solo, is your journey rolls are all inspired. So I'm going to roll these dice, and I need to get a 14. So I've got a 4, 8, 10, 13, 19. So I've made the roll, and I got an extra success die. Because of this, I actually get 4 spaces before I get my first journey table roll. I am going to go ahead and roll on the journey table that came with the Strider mode, and because I'm in a wildland, I roll a single feat die. And I got a 9. So with a 9, I actually get a shortcut, and I reduce the length of the journey by 1 day. So that means that the 3 days that I got, plus 1 for my success die, plus 1 for my shortcut, gets me only 1 square away from the destination. Because even if I fail on my next travel roll, I still get to go 2 spaces. That means on my next roll, I am going to get to Bree and be able to deliver the message to Gandalf. One thing to keep in mind is I would have gained a fatigue point just for having to have rolled on the journey table, with that fatigue point counting against my current endurance. So let's see what would have happened had I not rolled the shortcut. Let's say I rolled a mishap. Well, if I had rolled a mishap, then I would need to find out a detail. And for the details, I would roll a single success die after I found the table for my initial roll on the journey. Since my initial roll was mishap, I'm going to roll a success die on that table. I got a 1. Sparse wildlife. I roll hunting to forage what I can. And I go back to the mishap table, and I see that if I fail my hunting roll, I add a day to the length of the journey, and gain 1 additional fatigue, as well as an automatic 2 fatigue. If I had rolled this, then I would have gotten to use my hunting skill, which is actually quite good. It has 2 dice, plus it's on my strength attribute, meaning it's only an 11 to be successful, and it has this little dot next to it, which means it's a favored roll, which means I get to roll 2 feat dice and keep the best of the 2. And in this case, that would be a 9, 12, 13 on a roll of 11. So I would have only gotten the 2 fatigue points that are automatic. I wouldn't have gotten the negative consequences for failing the roll. And those are the basics of the Strider mode. So there's not a lot to it. It's actually much simpler when you play it than it seems when you read it. If you have any interest in seeing more about the Strider mode or the further adventures of Otar Shadowstep, or if you want to know more about the One Ring in general, please place a comment down below the video. And be looking forward to some more content on other RPGs towards the end of the week. Until next time, this has been Justin from Books, Bricks, and Boards. Good gaming, and God bless.